Have you ever noticed how almost every fast food place uses the same colors? McDonald's, Burger King, In-N-Out, it's always red, yellow, orange. These aren't just design choices, they are biological triggers. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors evolved to recognize these colors as signals of life-giving nutrients. Red meant blood, meat, and nutrients. Orange meant fat, like an egg yolk or a fatty piece of organ meat. Yellow meant ripe fruit, energy, warmth, and survival. These were all rare, nutrient and energy-dense sources of life, and therefore we evolved to be instantly drawn to them. Fast forward to today, and those same instincts are being used against us. Fast food companies psychologically plaster their branding in red and yellow, not because it pops, but because it hijacks your biology. It makes your brain think, that's food, that's nutrients, go get it. Your brain starts releasing dopamine just from seeing those colors, before a single bite has been taken. In fact, studies show that red and yellow increase appetite and heart rate, which is exactly why they've been used in food marketing for decades. There are even anthropological theories suggesting that human color vision evolved specifically to detect nutrient signals from things like blood, fat, and ripeness. So when your eyes catch that red and yellow sign, your brain believes it's about to feast on survival food, rich in fat, protein, energy, and nutrients. But instead, it's being fed seed oils, sugar, synthetic flavorings, and empty calories. And this doesn't just happen at fast food places. It's in the grocery store.
Grocery stores use very specific directional lights aimed at fruits and vegetables to make their colors pop.
On packaging, in commercials, it's everywhere. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to deprogram the manipulation and rebuild your instincts for real nutrition. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I really want to talk about is fat. Fat is a huge component of why so many people find fast food and other processed foods delicious today. Because fat is one of the things that we as modern humans need the most. When you look at indigenous people, or you look at hunter-gatherer ancestors, or even present-day hunter-gatherers, they really prize fat as one of the most important foods for their overall health and fertility and bringing on their bloodline into the future. Fat is really that fertility driver, and it really brings a lot of nutrition into our body when we get the proper fat, obviously. But when you go to fast food places, what they use is obviously not good fat. They basically use industrial seed oils to cook their fries in, to fill their burgers with, and all the other junk food that they're selling is just filled with seed oils. Seed oils are very, very inflammatory, very toxic to the human body, but our body can also not really recognize what is seed oils and what is healthy oils. So a lot of people today, they will crave chips, for example, or they'll crave fries, or they'll crave fast food, mostly because they are deficient in fat. But because they're just going with the seed oil options every time they have that craving, they never actually really satisfy that craving and get that high quality fat that they need to support their hormones and all the other processes in their body. So fat is just such a key nutrient, and if we can get actual real fat into our diet instead of the fast food version fats, then we will be doing a lot of good. We'll probably have much less fast food cravings because our body is finally able to be satiated by that good quality fat. So let's talk about what good quality fat would be instead of filling ourselves with all of these seed oils. So I know fat has been demonized a lot, and especially saturated fats, but those are actually the fats that are most biologically resonating with our body from an ancestral setting. So the fats our ancestors have relied upon for thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of years have been saturated fats. Saturated fatty acids are very simple molecules of fat that are able to be easily integrated into your body and used for many different processes like higher energy, better hormones, and better skin, just so many different things. And we get those primarily from animal products like good quality eggs, good quality meats, and also dairy products. And if you were to incorporate those into the fast foods instead of the seed oils, you would get such a huge return on investment. So say we, for example, take some potatoes, we cut them up, and instead of frying them in seed oils like canola oil or peanut oil or soybean oil, like these fast food places are doing, we actually use another type of fat that is more ancestrally resonating with us. This could be beef tallow. Actually, beef tallow was used by McDonald's back in the day when it first started, but then somewhere around the 1990s, I think, they switched to seed oils because it's cheaper and it basically gives kind of a similar flavor as beef tallow. But beef tallow is such a healthier option for us. So if we were to actually take those fries and just cook them in beef tallow, we would be feeling so much healthier, and we would actually be nourishing a part of our body. And we could be eating that fast food item, the French fries, in an actual healthy way without getting inflamed and without not satisfying our fat cravings. The same goes for all the other food components, because even your burger and stuff at fast food places, or if you buy it at grocery stores and whatnot, it will be cooked in seed oils, or there will have been seed oils added, because seed oils are so cheap for these food manufacturers and fast food places to use. So they just fill all of their foods with it all the time if they can. It's cheap, it's flavor neutral, and your body thinks it's getting real fat, but it's actually getting inflamed and having all these different issues. Actually, I would say eating a lot of seed oils is as unhealthy for you as smoking regularly. That's how bad they are for you. So there's this site you can actually use. It's called Local Fats. So if you really want to eat out, you can use this site to pinpoint areas and restaurants in your area where they actually use things that are not seed oils, basically. So beef tallow, it could also be pork lard, it could also be coconut oil and things like that. Those are all saturated fats that are much better for our body, and often they'll even taste better than seed oils, and you will actually get satiated and feel full when you've eaten those meals. Because you've probably noticed that when you go to fast food restaurants and you eat those heavily seed oil filled meals, you probably feel nice when you get the food into your mouth and you get that flavor bomb going off. But after about an hour or so, it feels like you actually haven't eaten anything. And that's because your body basically hasn't gotten any nutrition. But if we were to switch out those seed oils for those other good fat options, we'll actually feel satiated and we'll actually feel full much more from the things that we eat. So that is step number one in eating healthier fast food, is that we actually have to think about the seed oil component and the fat component. Because as I said in the beginning, we are so heavily deprived of fat in the modern world, and a lot of our health problems and our low energy and our addiction to things like coffee comes from being undernourished in terms of fat. So if you can bring more saturated fats into your diet, things like butter is also really good. Really good if you can get raw butter, raw milk, raw cream, fatty cuts of meat and stuff like that. And the next thing I really want to talk about is food quality, because it's not only about getting fats and cutting out the seed oils. We also have to really understand the importance of food quality. So obviously, if you go to fast food places or you just buy the junk foods at the grocery store, you'll get very poor quality food. This is basically food that has been grown in very conventional ways. So the potatoes are GMO and they have been sprayed with a bunch of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. They have been grown using petroleum-based fertilizers. So there's really no nutrition in there because there's no fertilizer actually giving it that nutrition. And there's a bunch of toxins in there as well from the pesticides. So it's nutrient poor and it's actually toxic. This goes for all foods in the fast food restaurant. Very poor conventional animal product meat. That meat is filled with antibiotics, which has been given to the animals through its feed. It's filled with, again, seed oils in the meat, because the cows in these conventional places are literally eating seed oils all day. The same for the pigs. So the bacon that you're eating is basically a seed oil bacon. So we really have to care about food quality, because if you get meat or bacon from good animals who have been living naturally, it will have so much more nutrition. It will have the proper balance of all the fatty acids. It will just satiate you and make you feel so much better. There are plenty of studies out there showing how grass-fed meat can actually have significant amounts of things like omega-3, which is very good for our hormones and energy levels and brain health. And if you get bacon, for example, from a pig who has been living naturally, perhaps in the woods like it's meant to, the fatty acid profile of that bacon is something that's actually going to help your health out. So when you think about that, you can really eat any of these fast food items if they're just made in the correct ways. Think about a pizza, for example, or a burger. Most people would say that those foods are just inherently unhealthy and that we shouldn't be eating them. But what is unhealthy about these foods is not really the components, but the quality of those components. So if you were to make a standard McDonald's burger, it would have very poor quality meat. The bun would be made from synthetic wheat and all these additives put in there and sugar and whatnot. There's so many different ingredients in just a fast food burger bun. And the ketchup would have all these different additives and colorings. And there's just 1,000 ingredients in just that one burger. And 90% of them are toxic and are gonna give you very bad health results and zero nutrients, basically. But if you were to make that burger from actual good ingredients, so let's say you take a burger patty that's made from grass-fed beef, You take the buns and make them from something like a sourdough einkorn bread. And then you take a ketchup that you make just from fresh tomatoes and some apple cider vinegar and some cane sugar or even some honey. Then you have a very simple ingredient burger that's actually very nutrient dense. And you could make many different other things here, like pickles in a healthy way, mayonnaise in a healthy way where you use beef tallow instead of seed oils. You can basically make anything when you care about the food quality, and you can basically eat whatever in a healthy, nourishing and tasty way by just caring about the quality. That's how you can eat any fast food out there if it's just made accordingly. Whether you make it yourself or you find some niche place in your area that actually makes food this way, then you can enjoy that as a healthy part of your diet, and you can have much higher energy, and you can just feel much better and finally nourish and satiate yourself. And this is something I go way in depth with inside of my health course and community, so you can click the link below to check that out. In there I have meal guides and I have a full recipe book filled with recipes for pizza, burgers, fries, snacks like popcorn, and many other different meals and recipes and guides that you can use to actually get very healthy and very tasty food that is able to significantly boost your health, energy levels, and get rid of the chronic issues that you might be suffering from. So click the link below if you want to learn more about my course and community, where we have the guides for everything you would need in order to eat this way. Okay, and then I also really need to talk about nutrients, and we've talked about this already a little bit, but we have to realize that most of the food in the modern world is severely nutrient depleted, and the way we're eating as modern humans is something that is also significantly contributing to us being very nutritionally depleted. Because when you think about our ancestors and the way the human race has been living for hundreds of thousands of years, it is wildly different from how we are living today. So when we are even on a good diet and we're eating meat and we're eating the proper quality and we're getting enough of the good fats and stuff, we are still eating in a very unnatural way, ancestrally speaking. Because our ancestors, they would, for example, hunt an animal and they would eat the entire animal, and I mean the entire animal. The bone marrow, the organs, the brain, the heart, everything from that animal got eaten. And that was actually how they got a lot of their nutrients. Actually, a lot of these ancestral humans, they saw the organ meats and those kind of unpleasant cuts to us today. They saw those as the most sacred, most nutrient-dense parts, and they were right. Things like liver, things like pancreas, things like kidneys of an animal have severe concentrations of very helpful minerals, vitamins, enzymes, and so on. But since we don't really have these in our diets today, and since most people don't really want to eat those on a regular basis, we have to look at different protocols and solutions to actually get those into our diet. Another food that our ancestors heavily relied upon would be something like oysters. Actually, there are a lot of theories suggesting that oysters is actually what helped push our species forward and multiply as much as it has, because oysters were very easy for humans to pick out of the ocean and open and get a lot of bioavailable nutrients from. Oysters are by far the highest mineral-rich food that you could eat. It has insane levels of zinc and copper and other minerals that are just in the perfect balance. It has DHA and omega-3s in perfect ratios. So it's a very powerful food, and again, something that our ancestors and natural humans would be eating regularly. But as I said, we're just not getting these foods on a regular basis. For one, they are hard to find in proper quality, so you would have to go to some kind of butcher. You would have to make sure that the animal is grass-fed and all of that, because keep in mind, a lot of animals actually also concentrate the toxins that come into them in the organs. So while there's a lot of nutrients in there, there can also be a lot of problematic components. So you have to really go out of your way to find these different organ meats, and then you have to cook them certain ways to where they're not as unpleasant, and it's just a whole thing that not a lot of people want to get into because it's just not appetizing. So what you can do is you can sort of use more modern practices. You can look for very good quality supplements that are able to actually get these nutrients into your body, and that can sort of be more of a modern way of getting these nutrients that we're just not getting from the way that we're eating nowadays. And this can really give you profound benefits. I can't emphasize that enough. Including these nutrients from the foods that we're not getting today is what can be the differentiator from you having very low energy to having insane amounts of high energy every single day. These foods were seen as sacred by our ancestors for a reason. They were the foods that were able to give them the energy and the abundance of vitality to actually hunt meals for their tribe and make them multiply, be fertile, give birth to new generations to the point where we are here today. So these are really the foods that have made us as a human species. So we need to include them somehow, or we need to actually get the nutrients from them in a more modern way that's more palatable to our Western palate. And this could be through specific supplement routines, supplement stacks, and so on. Again, this is something I go deeply in depth with inside of my health course and community. This is a very long topic, but I have a full superfoods and supplement guide inside of there that you can take a look at. So again, link is down below if you want full access to my superfood and supplements guide. And this you can use to really harness the power of what I just talked about. Okay, and then I really wanted to talk about something else here as well, and that is probiotics. Because this is arguably the most important part of a modern diet, and how we will actually be able to eat certain things without getting the problems from it that are associated with modern foods. So what I mean by that is that modern foods today, even when we get the highest quality stuff, is still filled with toxins, because I'm sure you've seen that our environment is so polluted by microplastics, heavy metals, the pesticides and so on. They even get into the organic fields and the organic farms and into the grass that the grass-fed cows are eating. And those end up in the animal and they end up in our body, and they're just everywhere. We're breathing them in, they're in our water. So there's so many of these compounds out there that are degenerating our health. And what our body naturally needs to fight against all of that environmental toxin stress is probiotics. Probiotics are beneficial microorganisms that help our body basically clean up all these toxins and safely excrete them from our body. And they also do a variety of other helpful health factors, such as keeping our gut microbiome in check. And our gut microbiome is really responsible for everything in our health. So for example, it's where a lot of our neurotransmitters are produced. So if your gut microbiome is out of whack, you'll basically have less neurotransmitters in your body to support your brain health. And those neurotransmitters are things like serotonin and GABA, things that make you feel calm and happy and so much more. So by not having enough probiotics in our body, we will literally start feeling sadder, we will literally just start feeling more brain fog, and we will not have as much energy and vitality as we could have. Because another role of probiotics is that they help your gut to digest and extract energy from your food. They do that by breaking it down efficiently and making enough enzymes to where you can actually get bang for your buck from the food that you're eating, whatever food that is. So a lot of people, they don't have enough probiotics in their diet and in their gut in general, so they're not extracting enough energy from their food. Maybe they're only extracting 50% of the energy that they could from the foods they're eating. But if they get the right probiotics in there in the right amounts, they will be able to maybe extract 90 to 100% of the energy from that food, and that could take them up a significant amount in energy levels and overall health. And it can also be the solution to a lot of the chronic health issues that people are suffering from nowadays. Probiotics are really important. And again, sort of to put this into an ancestral setting, our ancestors, when they were eating food, they were naturally getting a lot of probiotics, because probiotics manifest a lot when things sort of ferment. And if you think of hunter-gatherer ancestors, they were eating basically whatever they could find. They were scraping away at the dirt, and they were leaving animals out for multiple days where it was fermenting and adding all of these probiotics that today we would find a little nasty, like eating rotten meat is not really pleasant to us. But for our ancestors, that was a significant portion of the beneficial microorganisms that were coming from those kinds of foods. Luckily today we have many different ways that we can add probiotics into our gut in significant portions that are not eating rotten meat. And this is something that we severely need to do, and something that we need to target with specific protocols. Because when you look at the modern food we're eating today, it's obviously very far removed from how we would be eating it in nature. If we're eating meat or any food in general, it has generally been packaged and washed and even sterilized in many scenarios, to where it has almost zero microorganisms. Compared to the food that our ancestors were eating, that is very unnatural. So as I said, the way we combat that is by adding actual natural probiotics into our diet and into our gut on a regular basis. This can be done with fermented foods, things like kefir, sauerkraut, real fermented pickles, which is again a craving that a lot of people have when they look at certain fast food items or foods that they are drawn towards, basically the junk foods. So a lot of fast food restaurants will have pickles or some kind of coleslaw thing as a major component of their meals. You can also see this in certain foods that you can buy at the grocery store. And from an ancestral point, the reason why those foods are in there is because those flavorings basically tell our body that there is natural probiotics in there. But obviously when you get the fast food versions, there are no actual probiotics. It's just empty foods and there are no microorganisms in there. But if we were to make our own versions of that, or find some places that have actual probiotics in their food, we would get so many more benefits from that food. And another way that we are sort of modernly hijacked to crave probiotics, but not actually getting them, is when we crave things like sodas and other carbonated foods, which again are obviously a big part of fast food restaurants and why we want to go there. We can have these sodas that we really like that has the carbonation. So carbonation, the bubbles, the fizzy drinks, is something that from an ancestral point of view is naturally associated with fermentation, because when you naturally ferment stuff, for example like a water kefir or a ginger box soda or whatever you would ferment with water and sugar, it would naturally create CO2 and bubbles basically in the drink, and you would drink that and you would get a lot of beneficial probiotics from that fermentation process. But when you're drinking a soda, you're not actually drinking something that has been fermented. You're just drinking sugar, and then they have added some CO2 in there artificially to carbonate it. So you're getting none of the benefits, but your body is craving that for a reason. It's the same with sparkling water. A lot of people will start craving sparkling water when they need a significant amount of probiotics in their gut. So yeah, this is a really long topic and I could go way more in depth with probiotics because it is a major fundament of how I structure health in the modern world, is basically going on a proper protocol in terms of probiotics. And again, I teach all of that inside of my course and community. So if you want full access to my protocols and what I would want you to do in terms of getting enough probiotics into your gut and how that could really supercharge your health, I can't emphasize enough how this is the most important health factor, in my opinion, in the modern world, is getting these microorganisms into our body. There are just so many benefits to it that I can't even mention it in this single video. If you want access to how I do that and how I was able to heal my lifelong asthma, allergies and other things simply by going on a strong probiotic protocol, you can get access to it inside of my course and community, which is down below. In here I go in depth with everything that you would need. And yeah, as I said, it's a long story, so it's all in there and you can check that out. Other than that, I think this was it for this video. Let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments and I'll see you in the next one.